the two chapters talk about different paradigms that have been used in qualitative research. Based on what you read from the chapters, what did you understand about qualitative research? Based on the chapters, yes.
Qualitative research, you mean?
Yeah.
I have to reorient my thinking, being a physical scientist, and no, not the numbers. Now, let's get the real truth behind the numbers. And that's what qualitative research is starting to mean to me.
Okay.
Just getting the facts is kind of interesting, but then I want to find out what that person thought about the whole problem, get everything fleshed out. That brings a lot more meaning to any answers that I might derive from a quantitative project.
Okay. Somebody else? Yes.
It's the why. It's not just what is going on, it's why this is happening.
Why?
So it's looking at the whole picture.
How about the how?
Three questions are important: how, why, and what when we doing qualitative research, because they can give us a big or wide picture about our subject or why we do this.
Okay. Somebody else? Yes.
I didn't realize that the quantitative was testing theories and qualitative was generating theories.
I really like the way you put it. That's yeah. Yes, makes perfect sense. Yes.
Well, I was just thinking that it goes into the social aspect where you're actually going to people, finding out what their opinions are, and instead of just having it be number generated, and it goes out. It just has a more social aspect.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the interesting thing is that the knowledge is co-constructed. So there is not only one truth, but it's an ongoing process that we discover, through the investigation.
Yeah, so I understand the qualitative research is more holistic and more emphasized on the process of, and viewing the researchers as active participants in the process.
Active participants, yeah. I don't mind calling on you, but if you look at me and we just happen to have to do an eye contact, I would say, what do you think? Yeah, but I don't really enjoy calling on people. Yes.
I pulled this from Dr. Torres' book, but we learned that the purpose of research is to construct meaning of a phenomenon that includes humans, a complex and rich intersection of life experiences. I feel like this was a very good connection to qualitative research, because I feel like qualitative research especially is meant to focus on life experience, and that issue is much more individualized to a specific study or a specific person, whatever you're looking at, and it could be different than I think that was you had brought up the quantitative side of it, which is the intention is to generalize. Whereas when we talk about qualitative research, I don't necessarily know that we're looking to generalize. I think we're looking to understand, especially life experiences, some of which we don't have.
Somebody was Hamid.
There are two models for qualitative research, inductive and deductive. I think that as children, we are taught the deductive model, which follows the process of hypothesis, research, results, and conclusion. I can't.
And why do you think that as children we were taught to adopt that approach?
Perhaps it's easier to maybe it's easier to form a hypothesis and to form a research question before going into so that we have a direction to guide us as far as how to conduct research.
Well, here's my explanation. For decades, we've been operating through a very positivist standpoint, right? Everything has to be
disconnected from reality.
In some way, I would not completely disconnected. It has to be scientifically based, as if quality research is not or cannot be scientifically based. That's the myth many people have bought into. Okay. So before even going into talking about this, let me try to walk you through the very first steps. Okay? When you are about to do a research, conduct a research, what are some of the things that you should think about, keep in mind? I mean, we know all you have said so far makes perfect sense, right? So, but there are some steps that we need to think about when we are about to conduct research in general, and in particular, quality research. And like I laid out on this paper, those steps are very important. If you want to do a research, the first thing you need to think about what is the problem you're hoping to explore. So first you need to do is to identify what is it you want to explore, or you want to describe, you want to explain. Okay, you need to identify the problem. I mean, problem or issues. It doesn't have to be a problem, it could be an issue. Although sometimes those two words can be used interchangeably. So what's the issue you want to explore? Or what's the problem? Okay? So what is it? That's the first thing you need to have in mind. I mean, if I'm gonna go into any community, it could be a school setting, it could be a church-based community, I need to have in mind what exactly I'm looking for. what is driving me to go into that community to explore whatever I need to explore? Okay, that's the first step. You need to figure out what exactly you want to explore, right? And that will, in some way, help you figure out what the purpose should be, of your research should be. Okay? So if for example, when I was a student, I needed to do a research on English language learners. Okay, English language learner was the umbrella term, right? But what exactly I wanted to investigate about English language learners? But first thing I did, I identified the issue. English language learners are not doing well in some schools. Why? That's the first thing that I had in mind. So now, once I figured out what exactly I wanted to do, what the issue that I wanted to explore, then I came up with what? Well, I need to have a clear idea of who I'm going to be working with in terms of culture, race, identity, so on and so forth. So let's say that you want to work with Native Americans in this area. Okay, you are not Native, you are not an insider. There's the whole thing about ethnic perspective. You're not inside the reality, you're not part of the group, right? So you need to know what is people that you want to be working with, you want to do research with. You need to have a sense of their cultural norms, right? What are some of the factors you need to think about? Linguistic factors, racial factors. What are they? What are some of the beliefs that they really hold on dearly to? So you need to know these things, right? So what really shapes the school or the people you're going to be working with in terms of culture, race, sexuality, so on and so forth. Traditions, right? So you need to have a sense. You're not going to become an expert all of a sudden or within like three months by doing the research, but at least you need to think about those factors, because those factors influence how you're going to interact with the participants and how they're going to interact with you. I just learned not too long ago, about a year ago or so, I was teaching a class, and as usual, I don't do that anymore. I was shaking everybody's hands, you know, just to say hi, welcome. And one of my students said, "I'm sorry, I don't shake hands." Because in her religious belief, you don't do that. And I don't know if I'm wrong, and she doesn't shake hands, because women don't shake men's hands. That's part of her culture. But at first I was a little bit surprised. I thought that I did something wrong. You know, then she said, no, you didn't do anything wrong. We don't do that. She said, don't do that. So imagine having a desire to do a research with Muslim women, right? And you don't know these things, and then you go in there and try to hug them, and so we need to know, we need to be aware of this. We need to be culturally, linguistically, religiously sensitive, right? And these are the basic stuff. I mean, you can know all the paradigms about quality research. You can know about epistemology, ontology, method, methodology, you know, all these concepts. But the very basic steps you need to make in order to be successful at making those steps, you need to have a sense of the culture, the cultural norms, the expectations. So what is expected of men as opposed to women. So if you're going to do research with a woman, and you are a man, you need to understand what is expected of men as far as interacting with women, so on and so forth, or vice versa, right? I think that's very important. And traditions, what shapes that the group you're going to be working with in terms of the traditions, expectations and beliefs, right? And race, ethnicity, class, gender also play a very, very important role. If you're going to be working with a group and you don't have a sense of how race, class, gender plays a role in the, in the dynamic of the group, then you're going to end up misrepresenting their voices, because you need to understand how those factors, play a role. As far as race is concerned, if you are, let's say you are a white man, I'm just saying white man, I'm not, I'm not calling on you white man, I'm just using it as an example. And you go into a community of color, and you are dealing with women of color, and you don't really know anything about the struggle. You're coming from a very positivist standpoint, you don't believe that knowledge is co-constructed with people. You think that you are the expert, as a researcher, you're gonna go into that community and pour the knowledge into the head of your participants, then you might encounter many obstacles, right? So race, gender play a very fundamental role in terms of how you interact with your participant, and vice versa, right? So I think you might think that, oh, come on, we are all human beings. Yes, we are all human beings, but we are shaped by different life experiences. In our life, race, class, gender are part of our life experiences, right? So therefore, if we're gonna do research, whoever, you really need to take into account those factors. Otherwise, you're gonna end up, like I said, misrepresenting the voices of the people that you're gonna be working with, or you may not even be able to get the information that you are looking for your research. So those factors are fundamental, and we absolutely need to take them into account. And sexuality, some people might seem to be straight when they are not. So you cannot make assumptions by looking at someone and say, this guy is straight, and all of a sudden you start saying so many homophobic things about the person you're doing the research with, right? The fact that I don't look like a Muslim doesn't mean I'm not a Muslim. I can be a Muslim, and then all of a sudden, because I'm so Islamophobic, right? Then I start saying many things about people who share this religious belief. So we need to take into account these factors. Don't make assumptions. That's the key. Don't make assumptions when you are doing research, right? And another key component of research that I did not include here is trust. Trust, okay? You have to trust your participants, okay? The people that you are working with, not doing the research on, you have to trust them, right? And it might sound really simple. It's simple, of course it is. But if you don't trust them, and they feel that they are not being trusted, they are not going to open themselves up to you. They are not going to share things that you want for your research. And then how do you establish trust? How do you ensure that they trust you and you trust them? Is through dialogue. I mean, you really have to be genuine in terms of how you approach them when you are interacting with them. So trust is very key. All right. The setting. Okay. If you're gonna do a research at a school, and these are the basic information that you need to know, basic steps. The school, you need to know the school demographics. Who goes there, the little bit history behind about the school, right? I'm really interested in doing research in schools, because that's my passion. School or community-based churches or schools, okay? I really think as a teacher, that's what I like. That's what I enjoy doing, working with teachers and students. So if you're gonna do a research at the school, you really need to know who goes to the schools, right? The cultural and physical aspect of the school. Now, each school has its culture, right? And culture has body defined. Each school has its culture. Now, you need to understand the school culture. Otherwise, you're going to end up there, and then they will look at you as a stranger, and you will end up there. You will end up making mistakes that you could have avoided by simply informing beforehand before you go to the school. So, the physical aspect of the school is one thing, right? The school is really, the buildings are collapsing, and you know, there are too many students in the classroom setting and so on. But you also need the culture of the school, whatever that may be. The culture, that's very important, right? That's very, very important. The culture of the school. For example, where I did my study for my dissertation, that school has had a very specific culture. It was mostly attended by Puerto Ricans and a few Dominicans, right? It was, even though bilingual education was eliminated in Massachusetts, but teachers who work at the school spoke or speak Spanish. Even though they were not allowed to use Spanish in the classroom, but because they were aware of the needs of the students, and they were sensitive to the students who were, English language learners who could barely speak the language. So they used Spanish as a way to facilitate their students, learning, even though they were not allowed to do it. So they took some risk, right? So at the school, it was really a place where if you are